Can't hear the outro because someone has to mention the damn tabs. I've warned people before, stop mentioning the tabs. We don't do that here. Keep that one. We don't do that around here. What's my task manager saying? Look at that. Look how much extra RAM I have, guys. Honestly, look at that. I've got so much more headroom, and you guys are always talking about my tabs. We don't do that around here. We do have questions actually. We'll get to the questions. If you do have any questions, feel free to throw it in comments. But if you do want your question guaranteed to be answered, you use the community section of the channel. If you do throw them in here, I will get to them. You just gotta let me know so I can refresh the page. Other than that, we should probably answer some questions. Oh yeah, the channel hit 7,800 today, which is great given that I don't upload as much as I used to. So yeah, I'm really happy that the channel's actually doing well. Had some big hits this week, I think, which have really helped the monthly numbers. So I'm really happy about that. I'm grateful to everyone about that. So that's really cool. Nah, let's not include Fearless. Let's not do that. Let's see. So, amazingly, Nick Ferrari videos on my channel actually do quite well, which is really weird. Maybe it's just the way he randomly at some point he'll wake up and be like, "No, do you know what? I'm gonna say something about the Tories." So yeah, we move. I need a Mac. No, I don't. Look at this. A Mac couldn't handle all of these Chrome tabs. Mac would have no chance. But yeah, we are close to 8k subs and probably have to figure out stuff. It's been a while since I've hit 1,000 subscriber milestone. The channel's growing at 100 subs a month or something like that. So it's slow, but at least it's growing. That's the most important thing. And that's all I can really say on it. So I'm really happy about the fact that the channel's grown. But yeah, we have questions and I have answers. How many more letters do you think have been sent to the 1922 committee, or 1922 chairman? Do you know what? I wasn't going to talk about Nick Ferrari, to be fair, but when he's dropped the line, "You're as popular as bad breath." That one, see, that was funny. I laughed at that one. So yeah, once in a while, Nick Ferrari does come up with some good stuff. I guess he's a veteran radio guy, after all. But that line there did make me laugh. But other than that, the guy isn't that good. But then again, LBC's not really stacked with talent. It's full of really full of people. I think that I don't know if you're any good, to be honest with you, because you'll see a lot of good from them, and then you'll see a lot of not good from them, and you're like, I don't know how I rank you. Even Malice, who's probably their best person now, even she's quite sus on occasion. I've heard sometimes she just says stuff and it's it don't make sense. I think she was on that infamous kind of broadband communism thing on Newsnight as well. So yeah, I do have some respect for her, but the problem is when it comes to mainstream kind of people on TV and radio, my standards for them are very low. So if I do give them praise, I'm not praising them by the standards of, they're very good, as in terms of what I would want from a news presenter. They are, very good in what I expect from a news presenter, which is they're trash in terms of, their content. Did you know the story about Labour's other PMs being spied on the 70s and 80s? The UK government doing the same monitoring of social media activity of potential. I did see something about that. Yeah, I need to read into that a lot more, QA. I'm not going to lie. But we do have... I was going to answer your question. How many questions do I think have been sent to the 1922 committee or chairman? It's hard to know because Jenkins sent in one. So we definitely know... Probably I'd say 15, maybe 20 at a push. I'd say if I was gonna guess, probably say 20 at a push. I don't think it'll be more than 20 for now. They're gonna wait for a crisis moment, and they're all gonna send them in at the same time. But the only person who knows is Sir Graham Brady, and Sir Graham Brady will never tell until he hits the number. And even then, maybe he won't. But I'd probably say at 20, I don't want to be surprised. But they need a lot more to trigger. Do you know the number, QA? How many they need to trigger a leadership contest? Was anyone mentioned in the changes to your government card today on the bingo card? I can tell you, no. I 50. They got ages then. I know David Cameron coming back was very surprising. We'll actually talk about David Cameron during the stream. But yeah, cleverly to Home Secretary. I don't think, were there any major promotions? I don't know. I'm trying to think of who got shuffled around. It wasn't much. Really, it was just Braveman getting kicked out and Cameron coming in, I think. But Cameron coming in is nuts considering he's not a member of the Commons. So he can't be questioned. He can only be questioned by the Lords, which is just so stupid. So yeah, no, I wasn't expecting that. Hi, Sabine. What a week in politics. So the government of this country is not on the people's side. All they want is power and money. Time to change the rules. We are a sovereign and not those in government. Well, to be fair, Carlton Weedle 5724. It's not really a question. It's a statement. But then again, this isn't the questions tab, so you're good. 15%, 53, yeah, they got ages. 20s, they need a lot more. You could double it and they're still not enough. What action would the Republic of Ireland or even America take if the UK proposes a bill to leave the Human Rights Court? I don't know. I think we'd see condemnation. I think it'll only get bad if it directly impacts the Good Friday Agreement. I'd imagine it's where if the UK starts tinkering more around that area, that's when it would get really problematic, I think. But this kind of area is not my expertise at all. Honestly, I could only give guesses, and I'd guess. They'd probably condemn the UK doing it, or they'd probably really strongly say, I would advise against this. But if it impacts the Good Friday Agreement, that's when it will get really problematic, I think, in my opinion. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I don't think there's any more questions on here. So yeah, everyone needs to up their game like QA has and ask questions in the community section of the channel. So there was a Tory complaining about David Cameron not showing up, but then finding out he was meeting with Zelensky. I'm assuming not I don't know who Zelensky is. Do you mean Zelensky? Yeah, the Z key is near the S key, I guess. Me thinking it breaks the Good Friday. I suppose it would, wouldn't it? Because the ECHR, I think, is embedded within the Good Friday Agreement. I guess once it directly impacts it, that's when the Americans and the Irish government will be like, "The fuck you doing?" But that I don't know, because America are a very strange country. But then you have you're barely late. 10 minutes is nothing. Joe Biden is uniquely a very unique president in the sense of his Irish heritage. So I imagine if Joe Biden is still there when the UK makes this move, I imagine it will be strong condemnation. I don't think we'll see sanctions, though. I think it'll be very, very strong condemnation. Not only the Good Friday Agreement, it would break the TCAS. It would break a lot of it. I think it will break other international agreements we have as well, because the ECHR is baked into trade agreements and such. Excuse me. So I imagine Biden is doing a really good job. Stop the cap, bro. Maybe domestically Biden's doing okay, but in terms of foreign policy, the man's a disaster. Absolute catastrophe. He's not. Well, to be fair, I say that he's not. He's pulled out of Afghanistan. To be fair to him, but aside from that, he's not been great. Trying to see. I don't think Biden's that good. I was just going to see if anyone gave any commentary on the Al-Shifa hospital, but he did not, which is surprising. But yeah, anyways, we'll be talking about this. It should be an update. I've just done a video on this already, which will come out tomorrow, where I cover a lot of stuff we'll be discussing here. So I know it's a bit of a weird thing to do, but I think other YouTubers do it anyway. So you clip up your live streams, I guess, in that sense. So you had Justin Trudeau kind of condemning Israel's actions. We're not condemning it. It's just, I don't think he's that strong here. So, yeah.
The human tragedy that is unfolding in Gaza is heart-wrenching.
So this is most of these clips will be prior to, I think, them taking the Al-Shifa hospital. It'll just be within the last couple of days.
Especially the suffering we see in and around the Al-Shifa hospital. I have been clear that the price of justice cannot be the continued suffering of all Palestinian civilians. Even wars have rules. All innocent life is equal in worth, Israeli and Palestinian. I urge the government of Israel to exercise maximum restraint. As the world is watching, on TV, on social media, we're hearing the testimonies of doctors, family members, survivors, kids who've lost their parents. The world is witnessing this, the killing of women and children, of babies. This has to stop.
See, there was someone on Twitter who claimed that Trudeau even was pushing for a ceasefire. And with him saying the line, this has to stop, I think what he's saying is, that the targeting civilians has to stop, rather than him calling for a ceasefire, which is what Macron called for. Macron did call for a ceasefire. And so Macron's kind of bucked the trend with the G7 countries, which is important. So, I've already covered this. And this is prior to the situation in the Al-Shifa hospital. Now, let's see. Sunak side confirms he never signed a deal with Braverman on immigration. She asked for 4 things. We've done 2 of them. We're about to do a 3rd. PM doesn't want to do the 4th. Cuts to the graduate entry. Okay, I'll have to check out that stuff. Just DM me on Discord if you can. Spain have probably been one of the most interesting countries in terms of their response, because I know very little about Spanish foreign policy, but you have Yolanda Diaz saying one of the first steps for the new Spanish government should be to react to Israel for its attacks on the Gaza Strip, where she's apparently pushing for possibly embargoes, sanctions, diplomatic pressure and arms embargoes. Diplomatic pressure is one thing, but arms embargoes and sanctions are another. Sanctions are one of the biggest non-military things you can do to another country, is to impose sanctions on them. They can start, I think, possibly start sanctioning individual politicians who are involved in this as well if they want to, which would be quite a crazy thing to do. Something the Americans do with things like secondary sanctions, in order to punish certain people. So it would be interesting to see how far Spain take this. But they have done, I think, them and Ireland have probably done the most in terms of pushing for more than just a ceasefire. Spain have also talked about recognising a Palestinian state as well, which is something that a lot of countries just are refusing to doing, or some countries are refusing to doing. I did talk about the Labour aspect of this, which is just this geezer here who claims no one knows who no one what's it called, Khan and what's his name, man? Oh, it doesn't really help his case when I forget his name. Andy Burnham aren't, senior Labour figures. Harry Potter-looking dude here saying...
potentially will fear because, in all conscience, they can't vote with Keir Starmer on this. What should happen to them?
Well, I'd just say on the conscience point, because I think this is really important. Nobody wants to see what's happening in the Middle East, right? I mean, that's absolutely clear. And we should be clear about, if there is a vote, what this vote is on Wednesday. It's an amendment to the King's speech. It doesn't achieve anything. It's a kind of performative statement that says something that people believe in, and that's fine. People can believe in what's in that amendment and they can vote for that if they want to do so, but it won't actually change anything in the Middle East. And that's why you've got to have a really clear policy. That's why we're working with allies, why we're working with the government, quite frankly, to make sure that we're taking a united approach to how Britain can be helpful in the Middle East with our allies in the United States and the Europe.
And clearly saying like they won't achieve anything. So Spain won't achieve anything. The French are not going to achieve anything. They don't understand how diplomatic pressure works. And this is a guy who he's shadow chief secretary to the Treasury. This is a guy who will be possibly be a minister or a junior minister in the next government. He doesn't understand how diplomatic pressure works, and that by calling for a ceasefire, the minimum you can get is some sort of other concession out of it, especially if you threaten with sanctions and embargoes. This is a man who doesn't understand how the international community works, and this man will be a shadow minister, be an actual minister potentially when Labour win. This is a guy who doesn't understand politics, who would have probably said during apartheid South Africa, condemning them won't achieve anything, or, what if we sanction them and no one else does, then who cares, etc. This guy's a complete joke.
European Union, that's different to signing early day motions or petitions in the House of Commons or voting on amendments.
Sat where you are in the last hour saying, if you don't vote in favour of this, in other words, voting for a ceasefire, whatever that might mean, then you are morally corrupt.
Look, it's that language that is deeply unhelpful, because, look, Kate, if for a moment I thought that voting for an amendment on a King's speech would actually affect a ceasefire in the Middle East, I would vote for it. Absolutely, I would. We would all...
And politicians, this kind of thing with politicians, like, you expect them to try at least, even if you don't get the exact result, you expect them to try. And this guy, he won't even try to get a ceasefire.
All vote for it. Well, it is symbolism because it doesn't achieve anything. What it does,
it puts diplomatic pressure on Israel to commit to a ceasefire.
It just says something, when actually what you have to do is to try to work with partners in what is a very complicated set of circumstances, changing every day, to try to get to peace, which we all want. All I'm saying is that we shouldn't say that politicians are morally corrupt or have no conscience because of the way that they sign a petition or don't sign a petition, or vote on something.
Yeah, this guy's a joke. We've got this geezer here. He's saying, talking nonsense. I'm not going to bother to play a clip, so I played it in the video, but he's saying a ceasefire would freeze the conflict as is, when it's strictly not true, because you can put conditions with a ceasefire. You can say that one of the conditions of Israel agreeing to ceasefire is that Hamas have to release all the hostages that they have. Given that Hamas had claimed before that they would release all the hostages if they allow fuel and other supplies into Gaza, this is one way to get the hostages out, which Israel claimed originally that was the whole point of this military operation. The issue is now they're saying, they're going to go in there to destroy Hamas. It's like, how are you actually going to achieve that, though? Because unless you can find the tunnels and find the bases and things like that, you're not going to get very far. And given the fact that they keep claiming that it's under the Al-Shifa hospital, they're in the Al-Shifa hospital and have not found this big military base they promised. This from a former Labour MP and minister.
You can guess, I think, which way you would be voting if you were in the House of Commons tomorrow and the SNP motion is chosen by the Speaker calling for a ceasefire.
Yes, I would strongly support
This is Claire Short.
Ceasefire, along with the Secretary General of the UN, all the UN bodies, senior lawyers in our country. This isn't some lefty position. This is the view of what is needed and what is required by international law, by all sorts of senior advisors. So I would support it, and I hope a lot of Labour MPs do. And I think Keir Starmer's got himself into a silly position, and now what's happening is Labour is strengthening its language, like the government is, like Blinken is in America. They're all saying stronger and stronger things about what Israel shouldn't do, but not actually doing anything.
And that's what we saw from Trudeau. Trudeau saying, I would want Israel to show maximum restraint. It's like, okay, what you can do about it? Nothing. That's the point. This from Rachel Reeves, who is,
Keep it really simple, shall we? And say that if the SNP are planning to call on the government to join the ceasefire and a Labour frontbencher wants to support that, would they be allowed to?
I'm not too familiar with Claire Short, I'm not going to lie.
Well, let's be clear at the moment what the international community are calling for, because the G7 communique calls for humanitarian pauses to allow aid and assistance into Gaza. And so the UK is part of that G7, and Labour, as a party that hopes to form the next government, would want to work in conjunction with our international allies.
Well, given that Macron said before, I believe before this interview was done with Rachel Reeves, Macron has called for a ceasefire. Clearly the G7 are not all in sync like she's trying to portray here. Yeah, the G7 have agreed to humanitarian pauses, but it's clear that the G7 are not united on this issue. So to argue that we're in line with the G7 doesn't make sense when the G7 is not united with itself. More dumb stuff from this geezer.
And they wanted to call for an immediate ceasefire, but that we just believe is just not practical at the moment. Now, what you saw and what Nick described there is the emotion that's driving all of this. There are both sides. We deeply, deeply care about the humanitarian catastrophe that's unfolding.
Well, that's
but
what
we need.
Said. Had we called for a ceasefire yesterday, 144 children.
I mean, had we called for one, this situation, you know, the children would have been killed. Like, the UK calling for a ceasefire would not cause a ceasefire, but it would push in that direction and hopefully stop the violence and, you know, try and get some sort of resolution to this. I don't fully agree with Victoria Derbyshire framing here, but, you know, Peter Carr saying nobody believed calling for a ceasefire would deliver a ceasefire. That'd be like saying no one who believes in condemning apartheid South Africa believed they would stop apartheid South Africa. Like, these politicians don't get it because they're not trendsetters, they're followers. That's all. You know, when the polls swing one way, they will try and follow. That's the problem this lot are in, or at least for the most part they're in, because given the majority of the British public want a ceasefire, they're not in tune with that. And I think that, you know, if they keep doing stuff like that, it will hurt them at the election. But, you know, at the moment they're a lock. You know, it's going to be an easy dub for them, and that's why they should probably push more for a ceasefire, because they're a lock to win the election. And some of them have put themselves in a bad situation here when it comes to the electoral side of things. Because I saw the Telegraph article which said, like, Starmer can win the election without Muslim voters. Mithril again gifting people memberships. Thanks, Mithril. I really appreciate it. I wonder who the 5 lucky people are. Yay! Thanks, Mithril. Really appreciate that. So, as I was saying, you know, these people don't, you know, they're not. This is a lack of leadership. This is a lack of leadership here, you know, because, you know, this idea nobody believes calling for a ceasefire would deliver a ceasefire. You know, there was a point where I think a few weeks ago, before the humanitarian pause, no one thought we could even get that. You know, there was a point where, you know, people weren't even sure if we would get the Rafah border crossing open. That's why you have to try. You have to try. You have to put pressure on people. You have to do your best. But, you know, these lot don't get that, because all they see is, well, you know, if it's not easy to do, why should we do it? You know, it's impossible. Again, you know, this lot, Clement Attlee would be ashamed of this lot, I think, in my opinion. You know, given what he did, you know, the way he set up the NHS, this lot would be like, no, that's impossible, bro, you can't do that. You had this MP here saying a ceasefire is surely the minimum we should be demanding in the face of such horrific suffering. Didn't vote for the ceasefire. Probably thinks she probably wants a kind of shadow minister for children and early years. Probably wants to stay in that role. So it makes sense why she wouldn't. Maybe she's electorally safe. I don't know. Starmer apparently saying it's his duty to become prime minister. I mean, the ego on this guy is just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. You know, like, his duty, his obligation, you know, like, this is not a burden for you to become prime minister. You know, leadership shouldn't be a burden on a person, not unless you're in a conflict zone or, you know, the country's going through massive turmoil. You know, it's his duty. You know, it just doesn't, you know, maybe the title of knight has gone to his head. I don't know. It's just embarrassing. This from Rachel Sharby, and she does, you know, she's very good in these kind of interview settings.
Ceasefire, but it's in some ways it's that we cannot have a ceasefire, but it's in some ways academic, because what we say here is not going to have any bearing on the course of this conflict.
But I think that's where we've got it wrong, actually. I think that the only way this conflict the only way we're going to get a ceasefire is from international pressure. There's no way that Israel's going to do it on its own. And by the way, none of this started on the 7th of October, which was despicable. It was horrifying. It was a spectacle of violence that was designed to shock. But it didn't happen then. We have decade upon decade of green lights given to Israel, which has serially violated international law, not just in terms of the occupation, which is violent every day, not just in terms of the illegal settlements, which are expanding in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, but every single war has been an wholesale, indiscriminate attack on civilian life, whether that's Lebanon in 82, whether that's the crushing of the 2 intifadas, whether it's the repeated wars on Gaza in which thousands of people have died, whether it's the illegal blockade on Gaza, whether it's the illegal separation wall in the West Bank. Every bit of this has happened because of green lights, endless green lights given to Israel by the international community, which has been to the detriment of Palestinian life, but ultimately hasn't been kept Israel safe either.
You know, the US has blocked countless UNSC resolutions against Israel, breaking international law, and they did. You know, the United Nations was effectively paralyzed because the US kept vetoing the resolutions.
You don't believe that Israel has a right to self-defense?
Here's the straw man.
You don't believe that it ought to stamp out Hamas,
said.
which is a terrorist organisation prescribed as such by...
You know, literally, Rachel condemned Hamas like a minute before this, less than a minute before this, and she's like, "Oh, you're saying Israel doesn't have a right to defend itself," and blah blah blah. Like, you know, it's just absolute straw man here.
UK, the US government.
I'm saying
committed this awful attack on the 7th of October.
I'm saying that a people's right to self-defense cannot come at the expense of another people and their right.
I've not followed what the US ambassador, the Israeli ambassador has been saying. No.
To life and their right to the most basic freedom that every human on this earth yearns for.
I mean, this lady had no chance, probably did not realise who she was dealing with. We're going to move on to the Al-Shifa hospital here. This was the picture the IDF put out. So, you know, or this was a picture put out by the Israeli military, right? When we look at this picture, look at this military base we've got here, you know, 6 grenades, 3 magazines, a vest, a bulletproof vest, some handcuffs, communications devices, a really old-looking phone, and 2 Qurans and some prayer beads, right? Does this look like it's enough equipment to constitute this as a military base? Is this what you'd call a military base? This stuff shouldn't be found at a hospital. You know, hospitals aren't... You cannot use... hospitals as kind of for military purposes like this, you know, you storing equipment there. But does this look like a military base to you? This is the video that they had shot in the hospital, which will not I'm gonna have to refresh because they've done something to Twitter. I don't like it. They've done something where Twitter doesn't run that well.
Hello everyone, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan from the IDF here. I am in the Shifa hospital, as you can see from the sign behind me, and as you can clearly see from the building.
You can hear kind of gunfire and other things going off in the background, I think.
We are going to do a one-shot video. One shot, no editing.
So he's capping because there is editing in this video.
Of all of the evidence that we have found just now.
We'll talk about the edits they do. They're not. I don't know how major they are, but the fact that he claims it's a one shot, it doesn't make sense. So we'll go to the more important part. So he says he found an AK here behind the MRI machine. He talks about how there can't be a shortage of supplies when all of those bags are full of bandages and stuff like that. When you need more than bandages to help wounded people. I wouldn't be surprised either, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they found it there. Given that I think Hamas did try to, you know, they are fighting. I think they were fighting back from the hospital. I believe, you know, more stuff. They found more stuff here.
Like many other hospitals and ambulances and sensitive facilities inside the Gaza Strip for their illicit military purposes. So there's Kalashnikov rifles here.
So he's found, I think, about 4.
Even ammunition. And let's go see the next part of the of what we have here. Another MR that you saw in the other areas. And let's go see the last thing. Ammunition, fighting vest.
That's true. You know, that's probably enough for one person. You know, the vest and all that stuff. There is a jump cut like here. I think
only this part doesn't. Last part.
So there isn't the weird jump cut, but they uploaded a version with a weird jump cut somewhere.
Something that our intel researchers are looking into. Two bag. This bag
it's around here, I think.
And again, we opened it up in order to make sure that it's safe.
Yeah, they're forcing doctors out and patients because I think they're gonna tear the place down. I think.
To touch and show, so please don't give me any of that. You opened it up and you placed it there. This is the bag that we found. And
so it's weird that they took the bag out and they took the contents of the bag out here, but they didn't do that by the MRI machine. That's a bit weird. And the way they should have treated this as more of a crime scene where they went in there and they documented and took pictures of everything. Obviously, I get it's a military zone. Once you've cleared out anyone in that area, surely you go in there. The MRI scanner would be destroyed by the metal in the gun. That's too close to the MRI. We'll put a big floor polishers from 10 meters away. Yeah, it's a bit weird. Like they would keep it there if it was there.
This is the stuff that was in it. Now, there's insignia, military insignia, a knife. For those of you who read
For them, keeping a military insignia would be weird as well, because that would expose who they are.
Arabic, you'll be able to understand where it can go, which they thought would be a good place to store inside a hospital.
There's the jump cut. It's really weird. There's a jump cut here.
They thought would be a good place to store inside a hospital.
So he said this is one shot, no edits, and there's clearly a jump cut that's very strange. They point out this laptop, which has been blurred out, so it's clearly an edit. From what people have said on the internet, that laptop doesn't even have a disk drive slot. So why Hamas would be using disk drives, I have no idea. Especially in this day and age, like surely they have flash drives. It doesn't make any sense. They said they had the bags checked. But then again, how would he have checked this bag here, the one that he found behind the MRI machine? Like, you know, it doesn't make sense, some of the stuff that they're saying here, because he left this one in the same spot when, you know, it would have to be checked over by a bomb squad, I'm assuming. CNN claimed that the video looks edited. They're saying like it looks like the weapons and stuff have been moved around. I don't know if there's a legitimate reason to do that. Bear with me. Where's the BBC? This is the one I wanted. This is Ross Atkins of the BBC talking about that video we just watched.
Shifa Hospital as the main headquarters for Hamas's terrorist activity. This IDF animation.
So this is the claim, right? That this hospital housed all of this. So all of this was underneath this massive base, this massive complex, right? All of these tunnels, massive underground facilities, right? That's what the claim was.
Evidence of the tunnel.
But we're still waiting.
It has allowed the BBC and Fox News to film at the hospital, though only locations of Israel's choice.
This is what they found.
Israel also released its own 7-minute video, which BBC Verify has analysed. A watch, visible in that video, suggests it was filmed a few hours before the BBC arrived. And this IDF video was posted...
All right, I'll check out that QA.
Then deleted, then reposted. This time without a section referring to an Israeli soldier who'd been held hostage.
I don't know when this was used the last time.
Also in the video, we see a room with an MRI machine.
And if you zoom in and we get some light over here, what you'll be able to see is military equipment.
The BBC was shown the same room. And what we see in the two videos doesn't precisely match. For example, there's one gun in the IDF video, two by the time of the BBC footage.
They've also taken away the bag as well. I mean, it's possible that they just moved the AKs from the other room, but there were multiple AKs there. I mean, they've taken the clip out, which makes sense, but again, it's just what they're doing here. It's just bizarre.
Israel has told BBC Verify this is because more weaponry and terrorist assets were discovered throughout the day.
But surely you just keep it where you found it, or maybe you put it out like this nearby. Why would you move it back into the other area? It doesn't make sense.
And as always, an AK-47.
Israel also says its video is a single
guns near a magnet
shot with no edits.
To be fair, the guy said that he doesn't know when the MRI machine was used last, but that room didn't, it didn't look like a room where, like the MRI machine didn't look dusty or anything like that, like it was neglected. So I don't know what he's talking about.
This appears to be an edit.
Yeah, there's a jump cut.
We don't know the reasons for that edit, nor how significant it is. The IDF, though, says suggestions it's manipulating the media are incorrect.
I would say it's probably correct.
The IDF video also shows military equipment in other locations, though we can't verify how it came to be there. And what we see in this IDF video doesn't equate to Israel's description of Al-Shifa as an operational command centre for Hamas.
You think they'd be able to find more computers there, things plugged in to some sort of internet or a server or something where they would, a central command or something there.
The US is using a different phrase, saying Al-Shifa was used as a command and control node.
That's nonsense because Joe Biden... Oh, God, where's it gone? No, I've lost all the... Joe Biden had apparently said that the headquarters... that Hamas has headquarters, weapons, material below the Shifa hospital. So unless they can find all that, they're claiming it was used as a command and control node. So... Why are they changing it? Once Israel have gotten to the hospital, now they're changing their story. It doesn't make sense. You had a situation where it was on video. I don't know if this is the actual video. It doesn't look like it. You had Israel, an Israeli military officer, whatever, go up to a list. He claimed it was a list of names on the wall, and a list of hostage names or whatever. And then it turns out it was actually a calendar. It was a calendar that he was pointing at. You know, the days of the week, which, you know, maybe he's surprised to find that in a hospital. But yeah, no, it's a calendar. And Israel backtracked saying that there was a translation error. It doesn't make sense, does it? It really doesn't make any sense. And I think this is their source here. I think, you know, this is the source that they are using amongst other people.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
And, you know, it might be that
sources.
It might be that Senator Armstrong is the source, but, you know, you have to double source things and verify things. You have this from the New York Times, which says the IDF has yet to present public evidence of an extensive tunnel network and command center under the Al Shifa hospital, and Israel is coming under growing international pressure to show that hospital was a critical military objective, because they kept claiming the tunnels there, we have to take the hospital, etc. And they have nothing to show for it. This could effectively be the equivalent of Iraq has nuclear weapons. Genuinely, this could turn to him that everything Israel says is like, oh yeah, of course, there's bunkers under the hospital. Of course, Iraq had nuclear weapons. Like, no one will believe them. You know, the situation in West Bank, where you have more and more civilians being harassed and expelled. Again, all of this stuff illegal under international law. Barely any condemnation from Western countries. This has been ignored a lot. A situation where you had the former leader of Israeli intelligence saying that the combatant population in the Gaza Strip is really a non-existent term because all of the Gazans voted for Hamas, and as we have seen on the 7th of October, most of the population in the Gaza Strip are Hamas, when that's strictly not true on the face of it. You know, A, they are civilians, they are not military targets. B, the last time Gaza had elections, I don't think the majority of people voted for Hamas. And C, the people alive now, given that Gaza has a very young population, weren't even old enough to vote. I don't think a lot of them would have been even born yet when they had the last elections. Sky, complete fraud, absolute moron. And now we have Israel telling people that have fled to Khan Yunis in the south to flee Khan Yunis. So they told them, go from the north to the south. They went to Khan Yunis, which is incredibly packed out, and now they're telling people to flee from that area. And you have this geezer here, former Israeli Prime Minister, talking absolute nonsense.
We haven't yet come even to the heart of this operation. Khan Yunis, which is in the southern part of Gaza Strip, is the real headquarters of Hamas. They have the leadership, they are hiding. They have the bunkers, they have the command positions, they have the launching pads.
It's interesting you say...
You know, this man claiming it's all in Khan Yunis now, but I thought it was all meant to be in the north of Gaza. You know, we're saying, like, Israel has this much intelligence, right, to say that they have all of this stuff in southern Gaza, right? When they were completely wrong about northern Gaza. They were completely wrong. You know, they didn't have the intelligence say they were going to be attacked on October 7th. They didn't listen to the warnings coming out of Egypt and other places that something is happening, you need to be careful. And now suddenly the IDF know that there are bunkers and other things underneath Khan Yunis. Like, that's where the real military base is. So why did, if this is the case, why didn't this guy go to the Israeli government, go to Mossad and say, look, you know, what you guys are doing, you guys are wrong. It's not at Al Shifa Hospital, it's all in Khan Yunis. You know, this is clear what they're going to do. They're going to move from the north to the south. And they know they'll get away with it because the international community will do nothing.
Khan Yunis is the command centre because for the past week we've heard the Shifa Hospital was the beating heart of Hamas. And yet we haven't seen the tunnels or the weaponry.
You have seen the weaponry, you haven't seen the leaders.
You haven't seen the weaponry. He says you have seen the weaponry, right? We haven't seen it. We haven't seen the rockets or other things. You think you would be able to show that? You know, you've attacked schools. It was I think today or yesterday there was an attack on a school run by the UN. Yet they've shown no evidence that these were used as military bases.
You've seen the weaponry. You haven't seen the leaders. But look, I don't know. There are so many fake news.
This is so on the nose here because he's projecting literally everything he's saying here. This is who he is really when he accuses others of this.
It's now part of life that everything is spread carelessly. Had you asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd have told you that the center is really in Khan Younis.
So what he's saying is the centre is in the south. So surely he should have gone to someone and told them, look, you're looking in the wrong place. It's not in Al-Shifa Hospital. It's not in the north of Gaza. It's in the south. But it's clear what they're going to do. They went on completely destroying northern Gaza's infrastructure, and they're going to do the same to the south of Gaza. Israel airstrikes killed 28 Palestinians in southern Gaza. This is in Khan Younis, the area they told everyone to flee to. And one of the important things to remember is, regardless of, what has happened here, the horrific actions that Hamas took. Hamas are a terror organization. If you're a nation state, a country, there are laws and norms, rules and norms you have to abide by.
Even war is a high ground. Stay on it.
Even war has a high ground. And the fact is, the Israelis have not stuck to that high ground. What they've done is attack civilians indiscriminately. They said, we were attacked by terrorists, which you were. So now we're going to do the same. We're going to attack civilians indiscriminately. We're going to, just bomb anything we see. And what are you going to do about it? They've increased the settlements in the West Bank. Netanyahu has a very far-right government, which he cannot control. These are people who want more and more settlements, who the settlers vote for these parties. And these parties know that they have to play to that far right, in order to stay in power. That's the situation we're seeing here. It's a spiral of kind of just pure, the worst elements of, I think, fascism. This idea that we are better than you. We'll take your land, we'll take your homes, or we will murder you. That's what we're seeing in the West Bank. The West Bank has nothing to do with Hamas. There is no Hamas in the West Bank. They are evicting people from their homes, destroying their infrastructure, taking away the homes of people who have lived there for tens of years, potentially hundreds of years. No right to return. This is the situation we're seeing here. And, it's all well and good for leaders to say, Israel needs to show maximum restraint. At least it's something. But, given the fact that most Western countries have ignored the situation in the West Bank, it is shameful. And I would like to see journalists talk about the situation in the West Bank more. That's what I would want. But, the situation in Gaza is so horrific that that's where most of the focus is on. But I would want to see more kind of questions around the West Bank. But that's kind of our the update on this situation here. I'd like to move on and talk about the economy in the UK. So something I found quite interesting.
The ONS call it a very flat and subdued economy. It's not good enough, is it? You've delivered a stagnant economy for the British people.
Well, a year ago, the Office for Budget Responsibility said that...
So the ONS said one thing, and now he's saying, well, last year the OBR were wrong. They're two different groups, pal.
They were expecting the economy to shrink in the first part of this year by more than 1%. In fact, it's grown. And the British economy has shown itself to be much more resilient than many people...
It grown? It's flat.
Well, it's grown in the first 3 quarters of this year, and it was predicted to shrink.
The ONS called...
So I was clipping a bit there, the audio. Hopefully that was okay. Him saying, the economy is flat, it's... I think the growth is flatlining. Here's each country. This I found interesting. It's a bit of a weird... his phraseology is weird. Saying... the UK Q3 GDP growth came in today 0%, which means it's time for another update to the G7 growth chart. So here is each country's cumulative increase in real GDP since just before the pandemic. So it would be Q4 2019, I think. So America's GDP has gone up by 8%, which is, you can see their line being very high. And they weren't impacted that much by the pandemic. The Canadians doing quite well. The Italians, the UK is there at 1.8, despite the fact that we had the biggest kind of crash economically speaking. The French are there, Germany's struggling very badly, and Japan at the bottom. Germany's kind of struggle is a bit weird. I guess they are cut off from their main gas supplier. Maybe they should be more concerned about what's going on over there, given the fact that on foreign policy they're pretty ass anyways. Maybe they need to focus more on their domestic policy anyways. But, the UK is in a situation where I think our recovery will still be hampered. And this from the Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew, the Brexiteer Bailey.
Take no position on Brexit per se.
I mean, you did, though. You did take a position on Brexit. And that's one of the reasons I think you've got the current role that you have.
That was a decision rightly for the people of the UK. It has led to a reduction in the openness of the UK economy, though over time new trading relationships around the world should, and I expect will, be established. But to do that, of course, requires a commitment to openness and free trade. So to sum up this part of the story, we've moved from a state of affairs where the orthodoxy was to open up the world economy, to increase trade flows and increase the flows of finance to support this trade. And in doing so, yes, there was an increase in interlinkages and dependencies around the world economy. And some of those interlinkages turned out to be less resilient than we had expected. Take no position.
So, it's not looking too good. The openness of the economy is not great. And this, some more from Jeremy Hunt. I said that with a C. Oh, no, with the H. With the H. I said it with the H. YouTube, before you kill me.
We believe that work is good for everyone. We don't think that...
This is them talking about, cutting benefits, I think, and other things, and making it so that you can't get certain prescriptions as well. Or at least the government won't pay for certain prescriptions, which I think is completely abhorrent.
Sitting at home on benefits is good for anyone's mental health. And it's not fair to taxpayers either, because taxpayers are the ones who have to pay for those benefits. And what they expect in return is that people who can work do.
And literally that, the people that are on unemployment benefit, if they are able to work, are expected to apply for a certain amount of jobs each week and look for employment, which they do. If they don't do that, they won't get their benefits. So for the government to apparently put some sort of 1 year time limit on it and say that if you're on unemployment for more than a year, they won't help you is completely stupid. And again, people will die because this is austerity 2.0. And this version of austerity will be, I think, far worse, in my opinion, than the last version. This idea on those who exploit the benefit system. Like, you guys have done so much to damage the benefit system, where if there are people still exploiting it, clearly, there is a bigger problem, because you guys have spent the last 13 years talking about, you're going to get tougher on people exploiting the system. Either you haven't done your jobs properly, or the things you are doing is not effective, especially when certain people won't do more hours at work, because then their welfare will be cut. It's just such a stupid system that we have in this stupid country, honestly. Jeremy Hunt's a complete moron. 3 years after the transition period, UK real GDP is some 2 to 3% lower due to Brexit, corresponding to a loss of approximately £850 per capita. We'll see with the numbers. So it's a waiting game. We'll have to see on the numbers. But the situation with the UK flatlining, last week the Bank of England said the UK was likely to see zero growth until 2025, although it's expected to avoid a recession. So it's going to be flat. Our economy is going to be flat for just over a year. Flat, zero growth this year. Up until September, the Bank of England has raised interest rates. So the UK is going to see 0% growth, stagnant. And, Jeremy Hunt saying, they said the economy will shrink, but it's grown. But it's not grown. You can't argue that because the economy has shrunk, it has grown. That doesn't make sense. You can either grow, stay flat, or shrink, it stay flat. So Jeremy Hunt made no sense here. And, this is what they were saying. Government says unemployed will lose free NHS prescriptions if they refuse to work. Again, some of these jobs are not suitable for people. They try and push people into jobs they won't be suited for. Sick notes approved by benefit system, not doctors. So we have a system where if you're on welfare, go away. If you're on welfare, what can happen is the doctor will give you a sick note and say you're not fit to work, and then the people at the job centre will say, actually, I think you are fit to work. And they will question the authority of doctors. And then you have to go through some sort of appeals process, which is completely stupid. Because if you're not a medical professional, why are you giving opinions on someone's health condition? It doesn't make sense. Labour pension secretary says the government is not going far enough. So, when people keep claiming Labour will be better on certain issues, are they going to be better on welfare? Are they? And you can argue, New Labour were a lot better than this. Sure, this ain't New Labour no more, Chief. The Labour Party arguing the Conservative Party did not go far enough. That's the country we live in. We've got Dumb and Dumber running the game, honestly. Labour Shadow Pension Secretary saying the government is not going far enough. What more do you, I would genuinely, if I was able to interview these people, I'd ask you, what more do you want the government to do? What more do you want them to do than continuously punish poor people? I don't get it. I don't get it. But don't worry though, Austerity Man is back. Shall I say Austerity Boy is Rory Stewart. Austerity Man is back. It's the return of Dave.
The track record is terrible. And bringing back Cameron, I mean, the man's record.
Dave's back, baby.
I mean, he's still mired in the Greensill scandal, for goodness sake. He made £3 million out of that, and it's, our money that went to them to go to him, so to speak. So,
he, of course,
it's very strange, the situation on Greensill, and we'll discuss that in a minute.
Denies any wrongdoing, so why has it been brought back then, Alice?
Well, it reminds me of the early 1960s when they brought in a chap from the House of Lords, Alec Douglas Hume. He resigned his peerage to become Prime Minister because things, I won't go into the rest of it, nobody remembers it except me. The Tories were casting around for somebody to come in and save them, and he didn't save them either. He was totally incompetent and trying to do economics with a box of matches when Wilson sails in with his wife.
Yeah, that guy got cooked. I don't know who he was, but yeah, man, give it up your peerage. Point being is, David Cameron, complete moron. He should not be back in politics. It shows you that Sunak has no faith in the MPs he has left. He has no faith in them, and that's why he's picked out David Cameron. And that's not good for the Conservative Party. I was going to do a video on it, but probably time's past to do it. But yeah, Dave's back, and discussing Greensill during the pandemic. Because Greensill is a really strange company. I think Millennial Money did a video on them. Sorry, I'm struggling to find my mouse against this white background because dark mode isn't a thing on certain websites. Cameron joined Greensill as an advisor and a lobbyist a little more than 2 years after he left Number 10, so places him outside the band that they have for lobbyists. He sent 9 WhatsApp messages to the Chancellor Rishi Sunak, 2 WhatsApp messages to Richard Sharp, the then advisor to Rishi Sunak, 12 texts to Sir Tom Scholar, the then permanent secretary to the Treasury, a dozen texts, emails, phone calls and other messages to the ministers Michael Gove, Matt Hancock, Nadim Zahawi, John Glenn and Jesse Norman. So Michael Gove and Matt Hancock were 2 ministers under David Cameron. Didn't he get 16? No, I think he would have got 16 million if I think he would have got 16 million if they managed to IPO. I think. So yeah, if we have a look, Greensill Capital specialised in supply chain finance where businesses borrow money to pay their suppliers. Despite Cameron's efforts, it never received any more from the COVID scheme and collapsed in 2021 March. Its failure was estimated by Parliament to have cost the UK around £5 billion. Now, with Greensill, I don't know why it cost the taxpayer money because I didn't think any taxpayer money went to it. So it's a bit strange. Maybe there's something I need to do a bit more reading on. Someone like No Justice will probably know. Maybe I'll ask her. Founded by Lex Greensill, an Australian banker from farming stock and down under, I guess. He gave a lot of money to Sanjeev Gupta, providing huge sums to his steel and energy company, including $400 million backed by $400 million backed by taxpayer guarantees. Why that was backed by the taxpayers, I don't know. The Gupta Family Group Alliance, a loose collection of companies headed by Gupta, has been investigated by the Serious Fraud Office since 2021. The former Prime Minister repeatedly refused to tell the committee how much his personal shareholding in Greensill was worth before the bank collapsed. Excuse me. Why this man was let back in, I don't know. He was better off bringing in George Osborne or someone like that, honestly, rather than David Cameron. Cameron, it doesn't make any sense to bring him back in. Nuts. I did want to touch on Rwanda as well. This is something I'll do a video on. Just the Tory party is just completely out of control. And some people who do cover this stuff, they'll only talk about the Tories being in chaos, but I think Labour are not in the best position either.
Joins us now.
But let's talk about the Tories.
Live. Sam, what is going on? What's the latest?
So yesterday was a day of high drama after the government lost the court case in the morning, and there was the emergency press conference by Rishi Sunak in the afternoon. it was such drama that you could feel the kind of pillars of politics starting to shake. Something really quite bad was in the offing for Rishi Sunak. And he gave that emergency press conference that pressed pause on the revolt, but it's not quite clear how long that pause is going to hold. Today's one of those days in politics where nothing on the surface has particularly happened. The political system, the Conservative Party, has drawn breath to try and make sense of what's going on. But the mood in the Conservative Party, according to MPs and others that I've talked to this evening, is growing more critical of the Prime Minister. There are more concerns. Why? Because when he gave that emergency press conference yesterday, Rishi Sunak was bluntly simply not clear about whether or not the plan that he promised was more fudge or something more decisive of the sort that many on the right of the party want to see.
And they don't, again, they don't know what Sunak's planning on here, because obviously the court ruling went against them. Sunak's talking about emergency legislation, and as Sam Coates points out, they don't know what that kind of legislation actually means.
And every piece of evidence that we've seen through today suggests that it might not be as tough as many in the Conservatives want, whether it was James Cleverly this morning talking to Kay Burley, saying ultimately, I don't think we are going to pull out of the European Convention on Human Rights, that even quite kind of mellow MPs like Neil O'Brien, who left the government on Monday, leave them wondering how you're going to deliver that plan. Then you mentioned what...
How they're going to achieve the Rwanda plan and also stay a part of the ECHR. That's the problem they're running into. And that's why they keep talking about they might leave parts of it and whatever, etc. But realistically, that's not going to happen.
Then you mentioned what Jeremy Hunt said this afternoon. People don't believe Rishi Sunak at the moment in the Tory party. That is a bad place to be. For many MPs, they look at what happened with the Windsor Framework, where they thought they were promised something pretty decisive about Northern Ireland and Brexit. And in the months that have passed, they've come away thinking maybe they were sold a bit of a pup by Rishi Sunak. They are less willing to take him on trust. So
you got what's her name, Braverman, saying like, me and Sunak agreed on these several promises and blah blah blah, and Sunak didn't deliver on it. So I don't think he has the trust of the party, because they don't believe he's going to do the things that he claims he's going to do. And you can only get away with that kind of stuff for so long unless you've got certain characteristics that people like Boris Johnson, because Boris Johnson was seen as a winner. So even though you don't think you're going to get exactly what you want, the guy's a winner. Guaranteed in time you can try and get what you want. Sunak doesn't have that. He's got no charisma. He's got no chance of winning the election. So they know they're running out of time. They have until the election really to get what they want done, and it's not going to happen. And they know their seats are on the line.
The coming few days, Sophie, I would expect more people to come out, including Suella Braverman at 8:30 tonight in The Telegraph, with more complaints about the way that Rishi Sunak is operating. I'd expect the potential for some resignations, maybe in the junior ranks, maybe amongst PPSs, as people want to make it clear that fudge isn't acceptable to one wing. And I think
we're still waiting on that emergency legislation, to be fair, so there's still time until we see mass resignations, because mass resignations are a party on the verge of collapse.
I see others try other means to put pressure on the Prime Minister to get something decisive.
But then why would they do that if they don't think they can get the results they want? What's the point of trying? This is what I mean, the difference between kind of the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, to an extent of the Tory Party will put loads of pressure on leaders, like they don't care. Like, if they think you're a loser, they'll get you out, whereas Labour give certain leaders way too much leeway, and I think they're doing that to Starmer. They're giving him way too much leeway on this issue. Whereas you look at what the Conservative Party, how the Conservative Party are reacting over Rwanda, they're like, oh, we'll resign, we don't care.
But we're at a moment it's not clear where the government can take this. They don't want to move too far, that's clear, but that will mean pressure from a wing that they can rarely resist. Rishi Sunak looks quite stuck tonight.
Yeah, he's stuck in the mud with no one to get him out. And this is Robert Jenrick.
Victoria, we have won on the most important question of all. The country
Mr. Jenrick, forgive me, that is incredible spin. You have not won on the main principle. You have lost. All 5 justices ruled it was unlawful because it was not safe to send asylum seekers to Rwanda. That is a demolition of your Rwanda policy.
No, I mean, Victoria, I'm afraid that's not a correct reading of what's happened.
Robert Jenrick, a legal expert as well, apparently. Wonder where he got his law degree from, Trump University.
On this new Rwanda treaty for some time. How long?
For several months.
So Suella Braverman would have known about that, would have been involved in that?
She was. The former Home Secretary and I worked very closely together on that. It was the prudent thing to do. We
Robert Degenerate, not bad.
Believed that we would win in the Supreme Court. Their arguments were very strong, but we obviously had to produce a plan B.
Why did she write in her letter to Rishi Sunak yesterday, why did she seem to suggest that there was no plan B?
Well, the former Home Secretary and I worked on a plan B.
Did you, though? Did you work on a plan B? Because apparently she doesn't think you did.
And that is what we're now in the process of implementing.
So was she lying in that letter?
No.
He's kind of stumbling around. He's out of his depth. You know, these guys crumble under basic questions. We've got a couple more to go
Catherine,
through.
we had Rishi
It's very loud.
Sunak today on camera saying that he wasn't going to let a foreign court stand in the way of his Rwanda policy. I mean, I don't know what Rishi Sunak's definition of foreign, but the Supreme Court's just the other side of Parliament Square from the Commons, isn't it?
I know. I mean, so this is shameful in every respect. They are demonising migrants, they are demonising refugees, they are demonising the judiciary, which is straight out of the far-right playbook.
I mean, let's not forget on Brexit, with the enemies of the people front page. I mean, they're going down a very dangerous route here.
They are also... it's not just a dead horse. This was never a workable horse. Everything about this policy makes no sense at all, except as a kind of bit of election red meat.
I think the reasons why the Tories did this, I think there's a couple of different reasons. One is they want to use it as an issue to go into the next election. Like, we need to leave the ECHR. We couldn't do it because we didn't have a mandate to. That's why we're going to run on this next election. Two, I think it is red meat to the base. Absolutely. It distracts them from their kind of the failings of the economy by the Conservatives. And three, it puts Labour in a really awkward spot of defending, they want to put Labour in the awkward spot of trying to defend people crossing the channel. Labour, I don't know what Labour's policy is on this. They sometimes they've talked about safe points of entry, but I don't know what they've said specifically because they're very unclear on everything, because they say one thing and then someone else will be like, actually, that's not true. And so I have no idea, like, genuinely, until they come up with a manifesto, I struggle to believe a lot of the things they say. The only things that we can guarantee are they're not going to nationalise certain utilities. That's about it. Honestly, it's so frustrating.
And he also knows, Rishi Sunak knows, that it is not possible to get it done in any legal way before the election.
Yep.
Ian Dunt, the commentator, has done the mathematics on when you would need to have introduced the bill in order for it to get the reading. That would have had to be today, not in 2 weeks' time. And it's just a nonsense, but it's a toxic nonsense.
She's right, that's the whole point of this, and this is the culture, the monster, the culture war that the Tories created. This issue, they kept talking about it, and now Reform UK are going to steal votes on the back of this, because they're going to say only we can stop the boats, and because the Tories have made this such a big issue, they're gonna, this is a thing that's going to lose them votes in the end. They thought it would get them votes, but it doesn't. This is Suella Braverman's letter. She says, I was clear from day one that if he did not want to leave the ECHR, the way to securely and swiftly deliver our Rwanda partnership would be to block off the ECHR and HRA and any other obligations which inhibit our ability to remove with those with no rights to be in the UK. Our deal expressly referenced the notwithstanding clause to that effect. So she's talking about the deal she had with Sunak, and it's a very scathing letter. Your rejection of this path was not merely a betrayal of our agreement, but a betrayal of your promise to the nation that you would do whatever it takes to stop the small boats, because that was a pledge Rishi Sunak had. So she says, at every stage of litigation, I cautioned you and your team against assuming we would win. I repeatedly urged you to take legislative measures that would be better, secure us against the possibility of defeat. You ignore these arguments. You opted instead for wishful thinking. This irresponsibility has wasted time. Clearly, there's no plan B. What's she saying here? You've wasted a year and have acted Parliament only to arrive back at square one. Evidently, 100% there's no plan B, by the looks of it. Okay, yeah, these are miscellaneous clips I want to discuss. This one would have been worth discussing, actually. That 80% of the Democratic base supports a ceasefire. So that puts Biden well out of step with the Democratic base. And I wonder, given that there's possible primaries coming up, I wonder if this is something Marianne Williamson can use against Joe Biden. That could be actually interesting, but we'll leave that. We'll put a pin in that one. Apparently Braverman has bottled it anyways. Let's see, let's move this over here. Braverman has bottled it and will not publish a document which apparently shows Rishi Sunak agreed on a deal with her to make him leader. She's saying, I've got a copy, to be honest, but I've made the point. I don't need to keep going over events of over a year ago. If the PM wants to dispute what I'm saying, he's able to do that. So evidently she's capping. If she had the letter, she should publish it. She might do it during a leadership contest, but there's no point of waiting. Just do it now. If you want to trigger a leadership contest, do it now. Do it now. So yeah, this is the last clip we're going to go through.
Yes, I do, and I think it's absolutely right that we should do whatever it takes in order to stop the small boats, because fundamentally the situation is we've had 112,000 people come across in small boats now, and that is effectively just tearing up the rule of law in this country. You just can't.
It's not tearing up the rule of law, though. It's they're allowed to do this under international law.
Have any sense of fairness if those who come here legally and play by the rules see people just forcing their way into their country and then
they're doing it by the rules.
Being able to stay. Our ability to deport people has absolutely collapsed over recent years, and that's because of the build-up of case law and interpretation of various different judicial instruments over time.
What are they suggesting?
So what we heard the Prime Minister talk about this evening is both taking steps to respond to the Supreme Court's challenge directly by having this new treaty with Rwanda, but also doing something which I think is more important, which is to have a second piece of legislation that will protect that and protect our ability to deport people from various different avenues of legal challenge. Because what we've seen time and time again is
So not pulling out of the ECHR, but what, overriding elements of it?
I think that is the suggestion, one of the suggestions the Prime Minister made. I think he's right.
Has that been done anywhere else?
I think he is right to think about every conceivable option here, because people seeing year after year people coming across the channel, they know it's unfair. Every poll shows that it's overwhelmingly hated by the British public, and they want us to fix it.
You have a very long time to fix this, haven't you?
And we've been trying to fix it for many years, and today we see the latest.
That's nonsense. They haven't been trying to fix it. They're keeping this as a cultural issue. That's all they're doing. People might hate in this country, but it's probably because people haven't bothered to explain to people, like, under international law they can do this. And in order to stop the drownings in the Channel, they should have set up a processing centre in France. The Labour Party hasn't been a socialist party for years, but we can't spy. Bruh, at least write in English.
Installment.
Labour won't be a socialist government. They haven't been socialist in ages.
That with the courts once again blocking us from doing the things that we need to do in order to get people leaving the country. So
these are English courts blocking you for safety reasons.
They are a mix of various international agreements, some of which are very, very old, some of which go back to 1951, 1967, and so on. So
that we've signed up to.
And we signed up to them.
Some of them we even wrote.
And some of them we even wrote. And when we wrote them, there was no sense from people signing them that they would in future be used in the way that they are now used every day, which is to stop people from being deported.
Stop people being tortured.
To stop sending people to dangerous countries where they could face a persecution. Yes, that is the point of it. Why would you send refugees to a country where they might face more persecution? It doesn't make sense. Surely the people who wrote those laws would understand that.
Sent back to their home country to stop them being tortured or possibly killed.
So the people who are coming here, let's be clear, are coming here from France, an extremely safe country, right? So they're not going to be tortured or killed in France. Many of those people, some of those people will be genuine refugees. I have every sympathy for genuine refugees. I've had refugees live in my house. But a lot of them are not legitimate refugees. They're coming as economic migrants and they're forcing their way into the country, and then they know that they can stay.
The ye is definitely tripping me up. Let's see. Where's your comment gone? Canny, spotted, it, the N there. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So, I would say a good couple of words there. I'd say probably about two. Canny and they're definitely not great.
Because our ability to deport anybody has been totally hobbled by the build-up of case law over time. And we see every time we see people being.
Sorry to interrupt. Why is the grant rate then for people coming from Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen around?
It's the context he's used it in, I think.
75%. So the Home Office is agreeing they're genuine refugees. That's most of them.
The grant rate used to be much lower for all of these things. So our grant rate is one of the most generous in the world. So the UK system.
So why don't you change the grant rate then? Evidently, our grant rate allows them to come here because they're being persecuted in the country that they are from. So unless you change the grant rate, you're not going to get anywhere, because the point is they can seek refuge in this country because this country allows it. They qualify for it.
And
that's down to the Home Office.
But a lot of these people, if you think about where they're coming from, so 1,000 of the people who came across the channel last year were from India. It's the world's largest democracy. It's a superpower.
India is hardly a democracy. It persecutes Muslims. So that's not even true. It's complete nonsense. It's a superpower. My man, there's only one superpower in this world. That's the United States of America. And even that's a country that has poverty. India has extreme poverty in certain areas. This argument makes completely no sense. India is a country that receives foreign aid from the UK.
Last year were from India. It's the world's largest democracy. It's a superpower. There are many safe and legal ways to get here from India. That is not a legitimate way to arrive in this country, just to force your way in by crossing the channel.
So there are many refugees here from India, and they come here through safe and legal means. Maybe the refugees coming from other countries don't have safe and legal safe means to get here. Or, they don't have access to come here, because if they try and fly here, they are told they can't by the border forces. My man.
In the hands of a people smuggler. If you think about something.
What I'm saying to you is, irrespective of how people have arrived, the grant rate for people from places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria is very high.
It's not irrespective of the way people arrive. We can't have a situation in which people know that if they pay a people smuggler and they get across the channel, they've got...
Set up the processing centre in France, big man. That's the key here.
A 98% chance of staying here. That is just not how we can carry
it. That's because the Home Office says they can stay here, because they've looked at the criteria and agreed that they're genuine refugees.
They've looked at our current set of laws, and under our current set of laws and the current build-up of case law over time...
It's not just the colonial history, it's the language as well. They might have family here as well. They might have been promised refuge here, like the Afghans were. We promised Afghans a refuge, especially the ones that helped us during the war. And then we told them, well, if you get here, you can stay here. And they said, I bet. And they came here, and then everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe that they're here, and why didn't they stay in France, and blah, blah, blah. You literally told Afghan refugees to come here. Fucking hell.
Many of which are things that have never been intended by the original framers of these pieces of legislation. It has become increasingly impossible to deport.
I find his headline very misleading. I don't think she shredded him.
Everyone can see it. Everyone can see again and again that people are put into custody. They have umpteen appeals. So if you start with 400 people, by the evening of the flight, you've got 100 in their pajamas. Lawyers are getting these people off the plane. You end up with about 2 people being...
That's because you put them on the plane, you massive idiot. If you didn't put them on the plane, they wouldn't be coming off the plane. You did it as a stunt, because you want to say, look, this is what the ECH are doing. They're stopping us from deporting people. If you want to change the appeals process, then do that. But the point is, if they go through the appeals process and they win, it means evidently rule of law was not followed. Come on, my G.
Deported. It is shameful. It's unacceptable. It doesn't work. If you want to be a sovereign country, if you want to be a democracy, frankly, you've got to be able to have the right to deport people who shouldn't be here. And that...
I mean, yeah, you do have the right to deport people who shouldn't be here. But evidently, if they are granted asylum here, or if they're not allowed to be deported because you're not sending them to a safe country, because people have the right to be free from persecution, evidently, then they have the right to stay here. Like, it's not hard, Big Ben.
Right has been eroded over time by the build-up of case law.
It's complete nonsense, honestly. So it's done my head in. Like, maybe I should watch some of these videos more before I go over some of these during the live stream, but... did she shred him? No. Was it a good interview? No. I mean, he got away with a load of lies in here, and I don't think Victoria did a very good job, I'll be honest. I think she should have done a lot better in this interview. It's embarrassing from this guy, Brendan Neal. Rare L for Victoria Derbyshire. Because like I said, as far as kind of media people go, she's one of the better ones. Mattless, I guess, is one of the better ones. But they have off days as well, and I think this is a severe off day for her, because she didn't really say much, did she, honestly? So I don't genuinely, should I cover this in a separate video? I'll probably give this one a miss. I don't think she did that great a job. We'll see what Big Sue Ella comes up with. Thanks everyone for... I'll probably call it a day here, going for about an hour and a bit, an hour and some change. So yeah, we've been going for a while. But yeah, I'll probably end the stream here. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks, Mithril, for giving up the memberships, buying the memberships. Really appreciate that. Consistent people's champion. Also caught the end. Yeah, no worries, mate. I don't know how good these streams are, like if they're worth watching back or not. But yeah, if you want to watch it back, then go for it. Normally that's what I do with live streams, anyways. Especially if people add stamps. I'll just hit 1.5 speed and then I'll just watch the video because people talk really slowly. Although I don't think I can be accused of talking slowly, as people get really annoyed at me for talking fast, even though I don't think I talk that fast. But yeah, sad times all round, really. Just speak English, big man. Just write in English. You can speak in Scottish, but just write in English. It's not like, yeah, come on, man. Sad times. But yeah, I'll catch you lot in hopefully next Saturday. I don't think I'm doing, let me check calendar. I don't think I'm doing much. Was it 25th? Yeah, I don't think I'm doing much next Saturday, so it'll probably be another live stream then. And I'll catch you all next week, hopefully. Bye bye.